everyone, it's Cleo here, and today we're going to be talking about your physical appearance according to astrology. Now before I get into any details, I'm going to have to explain, just rewind a little bit, we're going to have to explain how we come to any of these conclusions. First of all, of course, most people understand sun sign astrology, that these are your birth dates, so you must be just one of those signs. That's actually just your sun sign. There is a lot more at play than that, and if you'd like to see any more about that, I made a video about it. The link should be in the corner right now. But of course your sun sign is not the main significator of your physical appearance. It's going to be a part of it, it's going to be one of the significators, but not the main one. The absolute number one significator of your physical appearance is your rising sign or ascendant sign. To put it simply, this is the sign that was on the horizon when you were born. You'll see it drawn as a line on your chart, you see it there. Of course your ascendant sign means a lot more than just your physical appearance, but it is, like I say, the main significator for it. The ascendant sign, I always say, is like a pane of glass in front of you. The glass may have a texture to it, or it may have a colour, it may have both, and people are seeing you through that pane and you are seeing them through that pane of glass, if that makes any sense to you. All other elements of play are behind that screen, so you can still see them, but it's got that tint of the ascendant on it, which is helping to explain how it also affects your physical appearance. You can have what's known as aspects to the ascendant, so there could be a 90-degree angle away from the sun, that means it's in a square to it. It could be on the opposite end, you've got Neptune. All of these things will also affect it, but there are just so many variables there that I can't possibly get into it. So in this video we're simply going to be going over some of the things we may be able to expect from the rising sign. Just bear in mind if you have any planets in the first house, which is the part underneath that line, that little section, any aspects to it, and you'll see those drawn in lines on the chart, or the sun and moon in completely different signs, all these things will have an effect. So just bear in mind when you're listening to these and you're thinking, that doesn't sound quite right, it's probably because there's so many other elements at play. This is very, very generalised. I think for the best results you should think of your sun sign and your ascendant sign. So for example, I am Sagittarius rising and a Pisces sun, so I look at both and it kind of makes sense for my appearance. So we're going to start in order with the signs because of course they do have a specific order. What's first on the list is Aries. What I should mention is every sign rules a certain part of your body. So Aries rules the face and the head. And because of this we might be able to see some very prominent features. People who have Aries rising or very strongly Aries generally may have a very strong or big nose. You might have very heavy, big brows, just very noticeable. A lot of Aries also know for having scars on their face, scratches, because Aries is known for jumping into things head first, doesn't think, so of course you're going to end up with scars. It just makes perfect sense and it's on the face, it's just simple correlation. Aries doesn't necessarily have a big nose, but there's something usually quite unique about it. It might have quite a prominent bone here, there's just something that looks a little different. Most noses aren't noteworthy, but an Aries nose probably is. The ram also has thick and perhaps curly hair, very dense. You can expect most strongly Aries people to be of a slight but very strong build, kind of average to small height but not puny, not small kind of person. This kind of person is strong, quite wiry muscles. Aries of course is a cardinal fire sign. This sign is confident. You will not see many Aries rising be a shrinking vial. Of course there might be other elements at play. Somebody might have very strong Neptune and that's really going to offset it. But if someone is strongly Aries or has Aries rising very prominent, and for example they've got Sun in Aries as well, they're most likely going to be pretty confident, pretty strong character, and you're not going to see them slouching. Aries may also have a very strong or large mole, might have lots of freckles, just something strong looking about the face, lots of marks on it. Might be, like I say, the heavy brows. They also have quite intense darting eyes, very energetic people who are strongly Aries, so you'll see them looking at different things. And then we get on to Aries' much slower brother Taurus. Taurus is not fast, is not darting, is not daring like Aries. They are worlds apart, and as such we can expect a very different appearance. The first word that comes to mind for Taurus rising very strongly Taurus people is sturdy. These people might be quite broad, sometimes kind of chubby because Taurus does like to eat. Taurus likes indulging in that kind of pleasure. And probably has also not been blessed with a terribly fast metabolism because, like I say, it's very slow, very steady, very patient kind of influence in a chart, Taurus. Taurus is the fixed earth sign, and you can understand how different that is from the cardinal fire sign. Just think of how different that sounds, and it is as different as it sounds. Taurus rules the neck, and we can expect either to see a very chunky bull-like neck or just a very beautiful one. As with a lot of ascendant signs, they kind of fall into two types. So first of all, we can see the Venusian type, which is the more elegant one, the one more likely to have that long, beautiful neck, the one more likely to be very pretty or very handsome, the one who is not so rugged, just a very evenly proportioned body and has a very slow grace than this kind of person. As you got to remember, Taurus is ruled by Venus, and there are two types, and the other type more leaning into the earthy side, the other side leaning into that Venusian side of the sign. And then the earthy kind is much more common. You're going to see them kind of short and stocky, getting wide. They're going to be strong. They're both slow. They're both a calm energy. The earthy one probably has a strong, broad back and is quite stocky. Both probably have thick hair once again and well-developed muscle. But yes, definitely I would say sturdy, prone to weight gain. I would say Taurus has to watch it because there's a definite propensity towards having a very slow metabolism, and then also a desire to eat a lot, not a great combo for keeping one's waist trim. Next up we have Gemini, the twins. And once again, Gemini is very different. This is the mutable air sign. Once again, you can just hear how different that's going to be. Quite the opposite of Taurus. This sign is quite tall usually and slender, almost a childlike proportion. You're not going to see on the woman very much curvature. She's usually just going to be quite straight up and down. And the same with the man. Not always, but leaning towards more kind of lanky and puny. Not always, but getting on towards that way. Gemini rules the hands, and they are known for talking a lot and using their hands a lot when they are talking. They're having bright and restless eyes, and they have a lot of energy just for talking. They like lots of different ideas. Lots and lots of different ideas. Small talk is Gemini's domain. Strong Gemini people are known also for liking little accessories, maybe little badges, little hats, just little bits and pieces to say something about their character. I don't know why, but that is something Gemini is known for, and I see that it is kind of true. They're known for having slender, elegant hands, as I said, because it rules the hands, and they generally have a slender body to go with it, and are also good at doing impressions of people. They're good at mimicking your voice. Okay, next up we have Cancer, which is our first water sign, which means we're going to see a lot more softness on the features. Cancer rules the chest area, and of course on a woman the breasts, so you might see on a man a larger chest or a woman quite full breasts. That's very, very typical, I've noticed, with Cancer. Or even if it's not specifically large breasts, you're just going to notice on men and women that they're kind of top heavy, the body typically, very much oriented towards an apple-shaped body, I think we usually call it on a woman. Everything's higher up. You're not going to see the big full hips like you would with other people so much. This sign also has a tendency to gain weight and like to eat. It's very similar to Taurus in that way. Slow metabolism, but also loves the comfort of food. And it's all about the comfort of food, of course, for Cancer. Cancer loves to be comforted, to feel at home. It is the sign of the mother, the sign of the baby as well. Very much likes to feel comforted in that way. They might have a very round, moon-shaped face, and then the same for the eyes, very round, moon-shaped, almost childlike, kind of with a dreamy, wistful look to them, maybe. I would say generally just very soft feature, maybe a very round nose, round and soft, everything is just rounded and softened, especially in women, as it is a very feminine sign. On to our next fire sign, it is Leo the lion. This is a pretty blessed sign, known for having quite prominent, well-developed, good-looking features on the whole. Tendency towards quite full, pouting lips. The sign has a kind of middle to large stature, maybe quite broad, has a very glowing radiance to them, and is very strong. And strong in the sense that they don't fall ill very easily. Leo rules the heart and everything that keeps you alive in that way, and you won't find very strong Leo people ill all the time. It's just not very common. They're very strong. Of course, there's two types of Leo. There is the brave and kind one, the one who acts like a generous king. It is a sign that is very kingly. It wants to give, it wants to be loved, and love in return. It is generous in that way. And of course there is the opposite end of that. There is the pleasure-seeking lion, who is a bad king. He just wants all the attention for himself, all the food, give to me. It's very much like a cat in that way. It just wants to take and take and take, give attention to me, give food to me. Very lazy. And of course that lazy one can become a very fat cat as well. And next we have a much more introverted sign of Virgo. Now Virgo, very different to Leo. You're not going to see that larger than life kind of element to it. It is much more practical, much shyer. They are wiry like a Gemini, but probably a little better muscle on them, not quite as scrawny as a very strongly Gemini person might be. You got to remember Virgo is an earth sign, so we're going to see two types once again. There is one who likes to be neat and orderly and organised, and they want to look their best and look precise, do their hair just so, do their makeup just so, do their clothes just so. But then also you're going to find that more earthy side. Once again, you're going to find that very earthy side like with Taurus, the one that sees no purpose. This isn't practical. What's practical about doing your hair and makeup? I just am as I am, very natural. So you might see one very well dressed and one just in very practical, almost farmer-like clothing. Because they're both ruled by Mercury, Gemini and Virgo people are known for looking very young, as Mercury generally gives that kind of influence. Libra is the next sign. It is the cardinal air sign and is known for being probably the most blessed on the physical appearance scale. So you'll see that Libra men and women tend to be perfectly formed. You're going to see that Libra men have that great triangle shaped body and Libra women have the perfect curves in all the right places. They're of a kind of medium to tall stature like all the air signs. And although the men of this sign do not tend to be the rugged, tough guy, they are very charming. They're going to be quite beautiful in that way, but you're not going to find the kind of tough John Wayne look in this man at all. You're not going to see that. Both the men and the women, of course, are known for being sophisticated and have a love of communicating. They are the sign of the scales and they want to balance that out with communicating, always in a relationship. They both love to dress well and look their best to make a great impression, because they're all about that one-on-one. Next we have Scorpio. Now with this sign you're going to see a lot more intensity. This is a fixed water sign. This is arguably the moodiest and the most intense sign of them all, and you're going to see that reflected in their appearance. You're going to see some very intense, probably quite dark eyes with quite a heavy brow probably. The eyes are probing and piercing and you definitely feel like they're looking into your soul a bit. Once again it falls into generally two types. So you get the long and lean type, the long nose and the long limbs, more slender, and then of course you get a second type which is a bit wider, as of course traditionally ruled by Mars, this sign. It's very strong muscle, broad, thicker set, you're going to see strong muscle on it, and all in all kind of the opposite of what I was describing Libra as. This is going to be, especially in men, you're going to see it be a lot more rugged. Both types I would say thicker, heavier brows somehow. Maybe it's actually the eyebrows or maybe it's just the way the skull is set, but either way that's very common. Okay, next is Sagittarius. This is the last fire sign and it is ruled by Jupiter, who is larger than life. So you'll expect to see this sign. Most people who vibrate strongly with Sagittarius, they're going to be very tall and probably like overindulging in food, so they might be wide to match. Might have a very oval and long face, perhaps even quite long teeth, almost horsey, that's quite common, and have almond-shaped eyes. Because Sagittarius rules the hips and the buttocks, you might see, especially in the women, they have thick thighs and thicker booties, and generally the men and the women will have strong muscle there as well. Also a sign of having thick luxurious hair, and people who vibrate to this sign strongly might also wear their hair very long. Our last earth sign, of course, is Capricorn. This sign is usually of a medium stature, not particularly noteworthily small or big, but what is noteworthy about it, a lot of people who are very strongly Capricorn might be darker than the rest of their family, and of course everything I've said, it has to apply to your race. There is no sign that is for white people or for black people or anything in between. There is no sign for that. It's just certain variations within the possible genes you have. For example, darker for a very blonde family might be having just slightly brown hair, but someone from a very, very dark family might be very ebony colour skin, so it's just compared to the rest of your family. Capricorn is also known for having sharp features, just generally, especially around the nose. Because Saturn rules this sign, Saturn rules the bones, you might also see they have very prominent cheekbones and a strong angular jaw. I would say Capricorn is probably the least likely sign to be fat ever as well. Capricorn is just far too practical and is not overindulgent the same way Taurus is at all. Second to last sign now is our last air sign, Aquarius. Now the funny thing about Aquarius is most people agree that there is just no particular feature for Aquarius. It is a very neutral kind of face, one that doesn't seem to fit any strong descriptions. It doesn't have the intense eyes of Scorpio or the marks on the face of Aries. There's just not much to mention about it. I will say, of course, like I said, with all air signs, they lean towards being quite tall and, from my observation, quite androgynous. It leans in towards that kind of neutral look. They might also lean towards being quite thin, and especially the women quite straight up and down, once again, like Gemini, also an air sign. very different to Capricorn. They might be fairer or lighter than the rest of their family. So once again, just compared to the people you're related to. And because it is opposite the strong sign of Leo, it actually has the weakest immunity of the signs, sadly. This sign is probably most likely to become ill all the time. So last but not least, we have little Pisces, the fish. This is an odd sign and is said to come in many shapes and sizes, but there are two general ideas that predominate. There is the whale, which is of course a huge person, tall and wide, and gives off the air of an intelligent, kind of studious person who's quite introverted. This person might have professor vibes. The gentle thinker who seems kind of out of place in this world. Maybe even they walk a little odd because Pisces rules the feet, and maybe they just seem a little uncomfortable on them. That's quite common. They also know having large, round, watery eyes. Then we have the dolphin type, which is also known for having those pretty wide eyes, but is a lot more kind of sparky and energetic than the whale, and is also known for being smaller and more elegant. This type is agile and graceful, and could even be expressing their artistic nature through dance. This sign is also known for having quite a pale complexion, usually especially with the skin, perhaps dark hair and pale skin like this. This sign is also known for having very thick hair, maybe once again darker and then lighter skin, as you can see here. This is a very common combination for Pisces, and full protruding fish-like lips, so you see them stick out a little bit. All the water signs, I should say, have a tendency to retain water and get bloated easily, especially around the face for Cancer, and always around the tummy for all three water signs. And Pisces also has a tendency to have oily skin and hair. Lovely, lucky Pisces. And that is all 12 signs. Let me know in the comments what you think to all this. I must say this is probably the least important part of reading a birth chart, but I think a lot of people find it the most fun. As always, never take these little tidbits of information too seriously, because everything, absolutely everything in a chart must be integrated, because this would only describe 12 types of human beings, and as we know, everybody is 100% unique. And your birth chart itself reflects that, please never forget that. Your rising sign, your sun sign, even those in combination, that's just a little part of you. So if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.